Is it worth venturing into the travel sphere with everything that has happened lately? The answer is yes. As the world recovers from the pandemic, the travel industry is gearing up to do business like never before. How will this newfound freedom change the way travelers behave? And what can you as a business do to accommodate new demands in a post-pandemic world? Our panel experts are here to shed some light on this redefined sense of leisure and how it could help not just the global travel space, but local ones as well. Good afternoon. It is the final episode of our Futurescape's webinar, and today we're talking about the future of leisure, one of my favorite topics. Let me introduce my guest today. First, we have Yeoh, Hoon, founder, Web and Travel. And of course,
Hello, hi,
here's
Peter.
Siew Hoon. And Siew Hoon well, I just found out, originally from Penang, now based in Singapore. We have Adrian Praveen, CEO of Arrowwood International.
Hi, everyone.
Who is currently in Penang.
Yeah.
And we have Johnny Thorson, global travel technology evangelist, out in Denmark.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah,
good afternoon. And of course, he was in Singapore last week. We should have done this last week. Welcome, everyone. I'd just love to hear from all of you to kick things off now that travel is opening up again. What are you most excited about in the travel and hospitality scene, and where are you traveling to next? I'll start with Siew Hoon.
Well, as Johnny said, he was in Singapore for our two-day conference last week, which was a hybrid conference with 250 physical delegates, and the world really literally came home to travel over those 2 days. And what are we most excited about is I think we're going to see revenge everything. We're going to see revenge travel. We're going to see revenge shopping. We're going to see revenge investments. We're going to see revenge innovation, revenge events, revenge programming. We're going to see revenge everything. And we can't wait for travel to get on the move again. And it is already moving, in different parts of the world. Where am I traveling off to next? Well, guess what? I'm off to New York City on November the 5th, and will be in the States for 2 weeks, and then I fly over to Europe, and I'll be away for a month, and it's revenge everything.
So. All right. Okay. I envy you. Right now, I just want revenge rest. Johnny, what about you?
Well, obviously I was lucky enough to be in Singapore last week, and it definitely confirmed the value of going and meeting people in person in other parts of the world. Mm-hmm. And that is the one thing Zoom or any other virtual product cannot do, right? It cannot create that close, intimate connection and the culture sharing. So travel will no doubt come back. But I think we will see changes in the structure of travel. Leisure travel will go back to normal as quickly as possible. Corporate travel will be a very different story. Right. As for my own travel, I'm going to Amsterdam 2 weeks from now. I'm speaking at the Dutch and Belgian Business Travel Association, who is having their first in-person event. So I'm kind of seeing myself being one of these first visitors to all these first events around the world, which is really, really cool, and I feel very lucky.
Right. I'm so envious just listening to both of you. Adrian, are you going to make me envious as well?
Oh, maybe not. But I'm so excited to see the travel industry coming back. I mean, It's nice to see people traveling again. It's nice to see hotels having people. It was a dead town. It was a dead building, It was just literally, probably we see birds flying around, especially in resorts, animals occupying certain areas. I mean, we've seen all of that in some of the clips. And it's so nice to see it being occupied again. Right. And I'll be traveling to somewhere nearer. I'll be flying to Singapore at the end of the year. I used to work there. It's an amazing place, and I'm going there for holiday.
Right. Wonderful. Okay. To Singapore. And of course, guys, for all of you who have just tuned in, if you have any questions, right, do put those questions down and we will address them with whatever time we've got, right? Now, Siew Hoon, you curate web and travel based on what's trending in the travel space. Now that borders are open and people seem to be moving again, what changes are you seeing in the kinds of players that have emerged from this crisis?
I mean, well, firstly, I think the changes as we slowly transition, into out of the pandemic is, there's a lot of paperwork to be done, right? So, a lot more bureaucracy, a lot more red tape. And I think at WIT, basically, we had the whole industry kind of very frustrated and almost angry at the failure of institutions to really get their act together at an earlier stage, right? And as somebody said, I think it was Timothy O'Neill Dunn said, Johnny, he said it took the industry 39 days to get its act together after 9/11. And now it's 20 months on, and we still haven't got our act together really as an industry. So I think the first hurdles will be difficult, but at the same time, I think there is this pent-up demand by travelers who will do what it takes to get over those hurdles, like I am doing, right? So I'm prepared to put up with the hassle because I need to get out of there here and to do business. So I need to attend conferences, I need to do business, I need to enjoy live music. So the human need will overcome overcome the hassles, right? What are the new players that will emerge? Well, I think the players that will emerge and have survived this will emerge way stronger. So they will be leaner, they'll be stronger, and a lot of them will be new tech players like Johnny doing a new startup. Much more matured startups coming into the industry with really matured solutions that will fix the weaknesses that were exposed in our industry during this pandemic. So this is, to me, the beginning of something new. I'm really excited about the beginning of something new in travel.
Right. We'll talk about technology and, how that's going to play a role as well. And I think also, Hoon, when you say that, you're going to go out there and do the traveling, it's also good that you're out there. Then you can also see where are the challenges and where are the areas to improve, right? So thanks for being our guinea pig.
Flying guinea pig.
All right. Okay. But you get to enjoy your live music at the same time. Now, Adrian, before the pandemic, we spoke about companies like Airbnb disrupting the hospitality scene. Now, do you see the trend continuing now that we're able to travel again? Or is it the demand for hotels in the conventional sense higher than it was pre-pandemic? Because, more cleanliness and all the other factors.
I think, in my opinion, definitely the hotels' demand will be higher versus Airbnb. And I say this because I think Airbnb, it all started because of two reasons. One of the availability, and one was actually the affordability. The availability meaning that whenever there was a major conference or convention or event in town, in major cities like in San Francisco and New York and Singapore, you couldn't book a hotel room. It was just all snapped up. And that's how Airbnb came about. So availability was a challenge, and because the demand was high, the rates went up. So obviously it's not very affordable.
Right.
So now when you look at it, right, most of the hotels are 30%, 40%, and affordability is being addressed when 5-star hotels that were selling initially, you talk about in KL that were 800 or 1,000 are now only about 480 ringgit. It's extremely affordable. So definitely the first choice will be definitely to book a hotel. And I think that the 5-star hotels will do extremely well during this time because it's so affordable right now. And this is everyone's chance to stay in a luxury hotel. I think if you look in Langkawi, the villas that were selling at about 21,000 are now maybe at the range of 15,000. It's so affordable. So why would you want to stay in an Airbnb when you can actually enjoy this luxury at such an affordable price? So definitely hotels will actually have a higher demand for sure.
Okay. Right. Johnny, you have your own vision of a traveltopia. And in an article on WIT's website, you said COVID could change the scene by producing well-funded corporate travel startups. Could you expand on both these ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Hoon said before, one of the things COVID did was it truly exposed a number of big cracks and weaknesses in the travel industry that we've all been aware of, but for 10 years or more, we've had a boom time in travel. So when there were problems, most companies would throw more people at the problems and solve them manually. With the COVID hit, suddenly it became clear we cannot continue to do that and grow the industry at the same time. So in any good crisis, the saying is that's an opportunity for new to start. And the investment community understand that travel is still a big global industry that will not disappear. So there's plenty of funding available for well-documented and well-thought-out startups that want to address these big cracks that we now know are there. And I'm lucky enough to be in one of them. We're called Spotnana. We have just closed our A round, and we have raised more than $40 million, which is an incredible big number compared to traditional A rounds in the travel tech world. And we are not alone. We're seeing other tech companies raising significant funding because the investment community is ready to support the right ideas. And this is really interesting because it does mean we will get stronger technology startups who will grow much faster and accelerate the change throughout the industry. So, and to Adrian's point, right, there will be changes in behavior in different customer segments, and they will not just look for price, they will also look for the smartest, the most efficient and simple technology process or path to consume a product. So if you rely on a manual, outdated, inefficient way of servicing the traveler, you will be in trouble. So you really have to invest in your future for the entire chain, not just kind of the initial selling process.
Okay. Now, the travel and hospitality scene, was caught off guard when the pandemic hit. Unlike other industries, they didn't have a contingency for such events, right? Moving forward, what do you think those contingencies will look like? Oh, Adrian, I'd like your thoughts first.
I think there are three areas to this in terms of contingencies. In terms of hotel operations, right? I think there'll be more contract employment versus permanent employments.
Right.
Because I think you see this right now. A lot of hotels are afraid and they're not sure. They're uncertain whether if you go on a permanent employment, what's going to happen? Is there going to be another lockdown? So you see a lot of contract employments, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. In terms of consumer change, I think you probably have very last minute bookings. I think some of us were caught up in the refund challenge, when we book our air tickets and we couldn't get our refunds and all that. And I'm very sure it's going to be booked on very, very last minute. This works both for the airlines and also for the hotel industry. And I think customers will probably opt to book and pay for their rooms upon arrival instead of sort of paying it ahead. So that's going to be the second one. The third one is that in terms of events, right? I think a lot of the hotels are going to find it very hard now to collect deposits, to secure deposits for functions. Because I understand that not all hotels sort of allow them to utilize in other venues. So this is going to be very, very challenging. And I think hotels will have to be flexible in this case. Sort of, if you pay a deposit of 10% for your function, you then can utilize it within a span of 12 months, 24 months, or 36 months. That has to be very flexible. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I remember what you were saying. Like how hotels are coming out with schemes where put some money down and you can use it later, that kind of thing, just to get cash flow and all that. But and then of course there were last minute cancellations because of numerous lockdowns. Right. All right, Hoon, your thoughts around this question.
Okay. So I hate to disagree with a fellow Penangite, but let's make it a bit more fun, right?
Of course.
So I think that. Firstly, this remote work, hybrid work trial that's being tried by a lot of companies. Trip.com Group, the chairman, basically they've started this hybrid work trial where people just come into work only 3 days a week and then 2 days they can do, and a lot of remote work happening. That's going to change the way people travel, longer stays and all that. And I think that's going to benefit Airbnb. So we had the co-founder of Airbnb speak at our conference, and he shared some very interesting stats, right? For example, he said that they are seeing an uptick of about 2.5 times in the share of long-term stays for self-reported business travel. And then long-term stays, which is 28 plus nights, were its fastest growing trip length category in Q2, right? So this trend is going to benefit players like, to me, Airbnb. I think people also want private accommodation. I think people want hotels, they're staying in hotels, they want windows and balconies, and there are not many hotels in Singapore, for example, that have actually openable windows. So little things like that, I think, I think this pandemic has been a huge slap in the face for the industry, right? That, as Johnny said, that we maybe were a bit complacent and all that. So this massive digitization of consumers has already happened, and we in the industry, we cannot be complacent anymore. Like we have to keep up with the customer now, right? So I think the good thing is there's going to be so much travel out there, right? In different pockets, that there is room for everybody. But it's a question of who's the most nimble, who's going to be the most flexible, and who's going to be the most creative to capture the demand that they want.
Right. Okay. Just before Johnny chimes in, I was just saying, very interesting. So those that are long-term stays would still look at Airbnb, and this is where Arrowwood has to get creative and how to get those long-term stays coming in hotel. But it's very interesting perspective of how, even though you say maybe for holidays that is the case that you want to stay in a hotel, but if long-term stay, that there's still a space for that at Airbnb. Johnny, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I was in London a month ago. That was my first business trip.
Right.
And one of the things that surprised me, which kind of goes against Adrian's point, right, that hotels will be cheap for a while. The moment the travel engine restarts, there will be nothing cheap. Because in London, there was a problem with only about 60% of capacity being open. The hotels were either still reopening or could not get staff. So the rooms were between £400 and £500, which really surprised me at a time when there was very limited business travel into London. The other part that I do agree with completely is that the travel industry will move to we call it consumption-based pricing or cost structure, right? Where you can reduce your cost base incredibly fast if demand drops. Before COVID, most of the industry was on relatively fixed cost bases because business was stable. And now most companies will address this by having a certain part of operational cost they can reduce incredibly fast. And personally, I heard it last week in Singapore at the Web and Travel event. Most of the travel players from Asia were all talking about how efficient they have become. They are all kind of running at a much lower cost base, which means their break even will happen much sooner than before.
Right.
And that's where you realize they will be stronger as a result of COVID once volume comes back. And the market segments, there will be people looking for the inn hotel with all the services on top, and there will be people saying there's no way I want to stay there. I'm going for an Airbnb because I'm not ready to mingle with 1,000 other people. So I think there will be room for all type of travelers in different segments of the market.
Right. Just your comment about when volume comes back, when do you guys feel volume will come back? And of course, does it vary from region to region? But let's look at Southeast Asia. Adrian, any thoughts on that, or Siew Hoon?
Let's go with Adrian.
Okay.
And in my opinion, I think it's going to take another 2 years. Okay. The reason of that is because in my opinion, I think next year we probably have the elections here, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I'm not sure how this will impact travel to Malaysia per se, and I think that will cause. Everyone's just keeping an eye on this one, right? We're not sure what's going to happen, and so I think in 2023 probably we can see a more stronger recovery in that year.
Yeah, the industry estimate, like from IATA, which is the International Airline Transport Association, says 2024.
Oh, 2024,
recovery going back to 2019 levels, right? 2024. But there are some pundits, maybe Johnny is one of them, who say, why should we use 2019 as a measurement, right? Because that's history. That's gone, right? And so we should be actually setting new metrics and setting ourselves new benchmarks now. And maybe we should be measuring tourism by different values versus what we always valued, which was millions of arrivals versus number of, how many dollars spent, right? Maybe we should be measuring leisure tourism in a different way now, because the COVID has given us an opportunity to reassess everything.
Right. Okay. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to put that in the comment section and we'll get to them in just a moment. I've got a question here from Audrey, and this is for Adrian. You mentioned how luxurious hotels have become more affordable post-pandemic. What about the smaller boutique players? How will they compete? Can they compete? How will they need to evolve to survive? And of course, this is to Adrian, but everyone can also chime in a little later. Adrian, your thoughts?
I think like what Johnny was saying earlier, right? There are people who actually would prefer accommodations where you don't mingle with 1,000 people. And that's the unique selling point that boutique hotels offer. They're very small in size. And number two, when it comes to experiences, right, I think you get a bit more personalized service when it comes to boutique hotels versus the conventional bigger structure hotels. And I think in this way, they definitely can still maintain their rates. And we have seen this, for example, in some of the boutique hotels in Penang. They've sort of reduced their rates, but it wasn't like 30-40%. It was only probably about 15 to 20%. And they can still have command a certain form of occupancy. I believe it's about 60 to 70% over last weekend. The other way they can do is to actually adapt towards technology. Not all boutique hotels use technology. It's still very traditional sometimes, where you use paper, pen, and logging of your systems and check-ins and all that. but they can actually adapt technology to actually enhance and improve the services. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that any I mean, in fact, I think that boutique hotels with personality, character, and that use technology really, really smartly will do very well out of this pandemic, right? You know, and in fact, I would, you know, one of the things that also came out of WIT was understanding rational behavior versus irrational behavior, right? You know, in the old days, but travel buying was almost rational, right? We would buy by price. Okay, cheapest, better deal, I'll go. But right now, I think post-pandemic, there's going to be quite a lot of irrational behavior around, right?
Okay.
You know, people are going to be prepared to pay a lot more than they would normally have.
Right.
People, I mean, I've got friends in Singapore, Sydney, and all that who are booking holidays for next year already, which they would never have done in the past.
Right.
So because they want to get the airfares now, because there's going to be this huge demand. So airfares are incredibly high now. I mean, I'm paying like an incredible amount to just go around the world, right? And I'm staying in a boutique hotel, which is very expensive as well. So there's a lot of irrational behavior. So I would say to small hotels there, please don't get into a price war at this moment, because the consumers really need travel. The world misses travel, right? So don't get into a price war. I just think it's the wrong thing to do right now.
Okay. And we're ready for revenge. Yes, Johnny.
Yeah, because I would actually say to your previous question also, Frida, that, you know, travel is not gone. This year alone, IATA forecast 2.3 billion air travelers. So as Hoon said, right, we should stop talking about this complete crisis. We have a new baseline, and comparing to 2019 really only has a purpose for statisticians, because if you can make more money on lower volume, that means your product has a higher yield. That's business, right? It's not about getting back to 2019. And if you can reduce your cost base, you can improve your margins on a smaller volume of revenue. So I really think, of course, we will keep comparing because the press like that comparison, but it really serves no purpose. And on the boutique hotel question, I absolutely believe that smaller players throughout the industry will have an advantage the coming few years, because they are more nimble. They can adjust quicker. They should be able to kind of tap into new requirements from the traveler community much faster than a 1,000-room hotel, for instance, can do that. So it's a fantastic opportunity to deliver really high value at a personalized level.
Okay. Here's a question I think closer to home, but I think it's also applicable as well. Will travelers judge a country based on how effectively they curbed COVID-19? For example, Malaysia in 2020 might have been a tourist hotspot because we were doing so well. You know, medical tourism, even there was talk about it. Malaysia in 2021 is a different story. Do you see consumer behavior skewing that way? Meaning like, okay, I'll go to this country because I know, you know, you can handle this pandemic better. Who would like to take that first? Adrian, I'll just pass on to Adrian.
I think definitely. And, you know, I think travelers will definitely travel to locations where they know that it's safe to travel, right? And these are three areas that needs to be looked at, right? Number one, on the daily cases. The daily cases are extremely high. Then, I mean, no traveler is actually going to go to the place. Number two, how the SOPs are actually enforced. You know, when you talk about the SOPs being enforced, I think there were numerous situations where we faced that multiple agencies have multiple SOPs, different enforcements happen. So that's going to be very tricky. And number three is that how do we actually manage it as a cluster, or how do we trace and isolate this? So to answer the question, definitely yes.
Okay. Siew Hoon?
I hate to disagree again, you know.
From different schools in Penang. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, no, again, it's there's a lot of irrational behavior right now, you know. And I think people will travel wherever they are allowed to. Okay, wherever there is a light, they will go. And so, like, I'm going to the US, it isn't exactly the you know, the infections are not like minimal. I mean, Johnny is in Denmark, where they've you know, moved on. They've gone past COVID, right? You know, and I think it's because we are in Asia and we're still stuck and we're still hiding, right? So we feel that the whole world is thinking that way. But you know, when I see, you know, my friends, they are not, right? So I think there's a lot of irrational thinking. Like all my friends, they are traveling to Germany, they're traveling wherever there is a vaccinated travel lane out of Singapore, you will see the demand. So I don't think people are going to say, oh, that country has disinfections. I don't know how I don't think so. That would be my thinking. I don't know. Johnny, what do you think?
I actually agree, because, like you said, there's this revenge mindset that I just want to travel. So if your top 5 kind of desired destinations are sold out, you're not going to then not travel. You're going to drop to number 6 or number 7 on your list. So eventually we will get people going everywhere where they can. I completely agree. But the other part is, and that is probably true, that a portion of the travelers will look more at the what if scenario. What if I do get infected? What are my kind of procedures for getting out of there? Will I be stuck? Will insurance cover me with no questions asked? There will be a lot of nervous travelers who might feel safer going to places they have a high confidence level about. But if you then drop to the other end of the scale, the backpacking travel community-wide, around the world we have 2 years of graduating students who feel they have lost their right to do the 1 year around the globe trip. So I mean, they're going to fill up from the bottom and go anywhere they can. So we have this incredible accumulated demand in all segments of the industry. So I really think everybody will get sold out next year.
Okay, I know you mean. So you can't be a broad sweep. You got to look at the pockets of people, the kind of spending power they have, and how you have to meet all this. Because yes, I have lots of friends who've gone to London because it was easy, right? They've gone to the UK, it's easy. There's no what do you call it? They don't have to go into quarantine. So a lot of people are going there, even though the numbers are up. But hey, they just want to get out. So again, I guess different pockets of people and their ability to spend and all that, right? I want to bring up I'll just bring out a question here from Shahril from LinkedIn, and he says, during the pandemic, most hotels are very flexible in changing booking dates. So you think the hoteliers will continue to offer this flexibility with no additional charge to cater for customers who gets infected after booking is made? I don't know, this seems like an Adrian kind of question.
I think as long as demand is actually not strong, I think the flexibility will definitely be offered, because there's no way to actually impose strict restrictions when the demand is low. It doesn't make sense at all. Right. So I see this, I think, happening right through next year.
Okay. So I've got this question about, looking at people from different pockets, right? Corporate travel. Companies, have seen how much they have saved by not sending their staff overseas. They save on business class flights, accommodation, and other expenses. Now, do you think this will be a permanent thing? And if not, right, how will this gap be filled? So probably Hoon first, your thoughts around this?
So what we've been reading in the media is where people have been allowed to travel. The SME travel businesses have been the first to come back, right? Because they don't have the rules around travel, or some big companies are not even allowing their companies to people to attend physical events, for example. So there's a lot of sort of duty of care for the corporates. But I think SME travel is coming back. Entrepreneurs have to travel. So there are, for some people, all travel is essential, right? So for some businesses, so SME travel has come back in a lot of the markets where people have been allowed to travel.
Johnny?
Yeah, I definitely agree. The startup and the small business segment will become much more important for the supplier side than it probably was before. Both because it's the last segment to shut down. People will go whenever they can. But secondly, those companies are now looking at the world differently. They also have bigger ambitions. A lot of them have realized that there's actually more opportunity for me out there than I thought in the old world, where I typically focused more locally. In the larger corporate segment, I think we're going to see two things impact the return of volume. One is duty of care, and large companies by definition are careful and do not want to put risk on their employees. But the second one is sustainability. Sustainability is becoming a big factor in the large corporate travel segment. A third of the 100 biggest travel buyers in the US, for example, have publicly stated they will reduce their carbon emission from corporate travel by 30 to 40% by 2030. That can only be done by not traveling. I mean, there's not a magic airplane that doesn't pollute out there. So we will see a reduction of traditional corporate travel, but on the same time, we might see longer trips emerge, which is great for the hotel industry. Because if a corporate traveler goes, it might now be a 3 to 5 day trip instead of a 1 or 2 day trip. So you get more out of your carbon emission. So again, the industry is changing, but it's changing differently in different segments. And it's a great opportunity for the supplier side to tap into this new kind of a trend.
Adrian.
I think this is, of course, temporary. And I believe that, there are a lot of industries, like what was mentioned earlier, that the corporate segment are still traveling, SMEs. And I think to add on, the MNCs are moving also. For example, if you look at Sabah and Sarawak, for those dealing in the oil and gas industry, they've been traveling throughout the pandemic because business has to go on. Oil and gas has to, they need people on site. Right. So the occupancy of the hotel was, it was amazing. I believe it was about 90% on average in these hotels. So that travel still continued. The other segment, if you look at, is actually the government segment. I think in predominantly worldwide, the government still travels. Ministry of Foreign Affairs still travels. Delegations still travel. We need more interaction between governments to curb COVID as in a bigger picture. So definitely this still continues, and that will never change. Right. So
All right. Okay. So moving away from the pandemic, right? Social media has a huge impact on the way people travel. People are looking for more authentic travel experiences. So, you alluded, Johnny, as well to this whole thing about, I feel, like sustainability, right? Do these things still matter? How is the travel scene catering to this demand? Johnny, maybe you can answer this first.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting one. I think in the initial phase, people will travel without even thinking of sustainability. So to see Hoon's point, why people have been locked up for 18 months or more, they're not going to care about carbon emission for their first trip. That's highly unlikely. But we're seeing growing evidence around the world that especially the younger generation do care about sustainability. Will they care enough to actually change their travel patterns? We don't know right now. It's an open question. But rail will be an increasingly attractive alternative to short-haul air travel. So we might see travelers gravitate towards places where they can move around by rail as part of their trip. Social media, obviously, we will see new ways of using social media doing travel. Travelers will quickly create new trends as they now start getting back on the road. Perhaps sustainability will become part of the bragging during a trip, that look what I'm doing to be good to the environment, instead of just where I've been. It'll be very interesting to see if there's enough momentum in that younger generation to start doing new things.
Right. Yeah, but I think it's beyond generation, though, Johnny. I think that's the thing, is if governments take the lead, right? If there's governmental pressure, then there is pressure on corporations. So from the consumer end, there are lots of surveys out there, Freda, that basically said that consumers are actually wanting to book sustainable options, but they are not finding enough out there, and they find that suppliers are not actually telling them about it in a way that helps them make informed choices. So that's one, which is like the consumer sentiment is swinging towards that. Then there's governmental pressure. We had the CEO of Sentosa Development Corporation, Tian Kui Eng, who basically said now that you have to think of sustainability like human resource, like governance. It's one of the pillars of the organization now, right? And for small businesses in Singapore anyway, if they are not addressing sustainable practices in what they do, in 3 to 5 years' time, they might be in trouble. Right. That's how I think that's COVID has also accelerated that part of it, right? So I think it's definitely. COVID will go away, we hope, but sustainability won't. So I think it's here to stay.
No. Yeah. And I won't name the airline, but one airline CEO on a recent call literally said that I'm ready to stay and deal with the COVID challenge and get us out of there, but I'm not going to stay and deal with the sustainability challenge, because that's a 20-year challenge coming. COVID might be 3 to 5 years, right? So if you are the head of a global airline or hotel, you're seeing significant pressure building on you to kind of become a leader in sustainability.
Okay. Adrian, anything to add?
I think sustainability itself is very costly, correct? Can I safely say that?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of hotels, I think, are very, very, I mean, when they hear the word sustainability, they just straight away take a step back and say, okay, it's a very long haul and it's very costly to actually implement it. I mean, as it is to actually mediate the cost of the sanitizations and all that, the sustainability part of it is just, I think it's just not in the current focus right now.
Right.
But it should be, because right?
Yeah.
Because I think when we say sustainability, people immediately think of tech investments, double glazed windows, plants everywhere, and solar panels. But actually, there are little things that small hotels are actually very good at doing, which is sourcing of your food. That concept, which is really at the root level, is really appealing to customers, right? And Thailand, for example, has started and I just feel, wow, I wish Penang would do this, right? Thailand has started they call it the Thailand Organic Consumer Association, and they've started the organic tourism movement, right? And the Tourism Authority of Thailand has now adopted that platform, and that platform is going to be rolled out internationally, which will allow people like you and me to pick a restaurant or a hotel is buying something on the blockchain technology from a farmer that is trusted. So you know where your kailan is coming from, you know where your namprik is coming from, right? So Thailand is actually been this platform has been in the building for 10 years, but nobody paid attention until now. And now the Tourism Authority of Thailand has adopted this platform as the global food platform for their tourism industry. So I think those are the little steps that we can take as individuals.
Right. This whole farm to table kind of approach, and that's what people are looking for. I mean, if you do a search, right, people are searching for these things, right? And if Thailand's got it, then they're going to Thailand, because that's, so, okay, Penang, pay attention. Okay, so we're talking about technology, right? So every industry is benefiting from AI, machine learning, and consumer data. How is the travel scene using these tools to boost business? I know Johnny wants to start off with this one.
Yeah, so I actually think historically the travel industry have done a very bad job at using the incredible amount of data we are sitting on. It's interesting. I always say, the industry is spending billions on staying with me for a few minutes when I make my booking, the point of buy or point of sale, right? And then after that, I kind of go invisible. And it's like nobody thinks about me until I eventually arrive somewhere and I have a service problem. Then I have to chase down somebody to help me and get back from my trip. So I think we, again, with the kind of the COVID hit and now the acceleration to innovation, we're going to see much, much more advanced data management solutions in the travel industry. Personally, right now, I know of 4 data kind of AI plays that are all addressing the travel industry as a new opportunity. So these solutions are blockchain based. So data privacy is a primary concern. You're not going to be monetizing in the TripAdvisor world anymore. There will be some dramatic shifts coming to who can do what with my personal data. And I just want to, throw my grime out. I've flown with 6 airlines this year. I've provided all my digital life to them. I have no idea what they're doing with my data. Nobody is telling me, will they delete it? Where are they keeping it? Who can access it? Nobody has an answer. I ask every time I check in, and the airline staff look at me and say, I really don't know. It's just interesting. There are no guidelines around digital data management on the supplier side in general.
Right. Okay. Hoon?
Well, I think that there isn't a travel tech company right now that isn't working on making customization better.
Okay.
So from Booking.com to Expedia to Klook to any of them, they are absolutely addressing that problem. And can you imagine, right, in a world where you can actually have high tech, but at the same time you can have high touch, right? Where the customer is embraced at both levels. So I think that's the holy grail to me of customer service, and this next phase of tech innovation might get us there.
Right. Okay. So upon arrival in a hotel in Penang, my white lilies in the room are already there because they know, right?
Welcome,
Yeah.
Freda. Welcome back. This is your 16th stay.
All right. Adrian, anything to add on the tech bit?
I just wanted to add on what Johnny was saying, which is absolutely true, right? But on a hotel side, there's a lot of data that's been collected. They collect it from upon arrival, when you dine at the restaurant. But all this data collected is not compressed and simplified and to sort of have the management understand this is actually what the customers want. It is not being analyzed. There's a lot of data being collected from the website on social media, but all those are not looked at holistically. And that's the reason why I'm not sure whether there's a software that can do this, but I think hotels really have to look at the software that can do that. Because like from restaurants to dining to check-in to transportation to weather forecast, etc., it doesn't tell us a holistic picture.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can,
So-
it's a good... Johnny, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a plug-in for web in travel. I mean, we had the startup pitch competition last week, and there were some impressive startups addressing different areas of customization and personalization and data management. So hopefully the suppliers will give these new players the ability to show what they can do. Because you're not going to build this in a hotel. You need experts to help you.
Right. And it's a gold mine, right? This information is literally a gold mine. You guys, anybody, if you have any questions, please put them through. We're about to close the session. I've got a question here from Michael Warren. So Michael Warren is the one who's got, I know he's a regular listener. He's got spending power. He says, I want to travel internationally and willing to spend more than normal to be safe, but not sure where to go owing to inbound, outbound quarantine restrictions. Are there any international travel holiday, non-minimal quarantine matching services I can plan my trips on today? All right, your travel agents here. I mean, immediately, if you think about it, like, Siew, you say you're going to the US. What is it like there? Any quarantine requirements?
Well, actually, it's quite interesting during this time, even though it's gone very digital. The first trips are being planned. Like, for example, I'm using FCM Travel, right, which is a corporate travel agency, but they specialize in small business travel. And what I find is they have very high tech, but they also have very high touch. So I'm very comfortable with that. And they absolutely just tell me, I say I want to go there, and they tell me where the restrictions are, what tests I need, and all that.
Okay.
So I think in the first phase of travel, we're actually going to see we're going to actually see the tech-powered travel agents come in quite strongly.
Okay.
Right? As long as you've got that. And I think, Johnny, there are a couple of startups that are actually looking at, there are like Safe Travel Barometer, right? That basically tells you in a massive data play, what airlines or what places are open and that kind of,
Right.
Yep. And they're also, interestingly, there's a few so-called B2B companies. They used to focus on selling to companies. They have actually opened their kind of content for the consumer world. So Riskline is one, Sherpa is another one, where you can go to their public websites, Michael, and basically check the current COVID restrictions based on the passport you're holding and where you're going from and to. It'll tell you quarantine requirements, vaccination and test requirements. It's all there in a structured format.
Right.
And it's relatively reliable. They're trying to keep up, but governments keep releasing information in different flows around the world, not thinking about the digital consumption of it.
Right.
So they're doing their best.
Okay, so interesting. So go to Sherpa, so you know that wherever you're going to next, based on whatever current information that I guess they can get hold of, right? So okay, in closing, folks, what aspects of travel have been permanently changed, you think, because of the last 2 years? We know some habits will bounce back, but what are some things that are never coming back? I will end off with Siew. I'm going to ask Johnny first.
Things that are never coming back. Wow, that's a tough one. Probably arriving late at the airport, because there are so many unknown variables. Having traveled myself a few times this year, I have added an hour to my airport time. So I don't think I will go back to close airport arrival.
Right. Adrian, what do you think are never coming back?
I think to see a hotel fully staffed and, to see a big fleet of bellmans welcoming you, welcome to this hotel, I don't think we're going to see that anymore. It will probably be replaced by robots to say, welcome, Johnny, welcome, Siew, Hoon, to this hotel. Let me show you the way. The little robot will just roll into it, I mean, it's because, labor is expensive, right? And of course, with the uncertainty, definitely a lot of jobs will be replaced with that. And I don't think we'll ever see that again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my mother always say never, because so I think the things that will not come back maybe in the first 2 years will be buffets
right
in restaurants, right? And buffets at events.
We all miss them, right?
And I think those silly trips that we used to make, like one day to go to Finland to speak at a conference and then come back. I think those for the next 2 years, I think that will go away. What I wish that will go away forever are those cheap shopping commission-based group tours.
Okay.
I wish they would go away forever, and I hope COVID has absolutely made them disappear. So.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for spending time today talking about the future of leisure. Of course, we have Siew Hoon from Web and Travel, Johnny Thorson, an evangelist, a travel evangelist, and Adrian from Arrowwood International. Thank you, guys. And the weekend's almost here. Enjoy the weekend. For those of you who have joined us, also thank you for listening in. And there is a feedback form which is posted in the comment section. Please help us to fill up so that we can improve better. Only 5 questions. So it won't take you so long. So on that note, thank you again, everyone, for joining in.
Nice to hang out with fellow Malaysians. I feel like I'm at home.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.